Hello. Can you guys hear me okay? Welcome, welcome. A little louder, Adrian says. Welcome, guys, to our Valentine's Day seminar. Isn't this great? Everyone's here. It's date night. Welcome, guys. My name's Josh. I'm the Community Hub Coordinator here at Selfview Church. How many of you guys have heard of our program? No? None of you? Okay. That's okay. That's why I'm here. And so, essentially, guys, we've been given a grant by the government of Alberta over the next year. That started back in last July, so we're kind of coming. Yeah, so we've been given a mental health grant by the government of Alberta, which actually is sponsoring this whole event tonight. So you guys get to come, and all the food, all the drinks, all the decorations is all being paid for through taxpayer fund dollars. And the reason for this is the government has partnered with churches and different organizations across Alberta as a COVID mental health grant to give support to communities. As you guys have known for the past 2 years, it's been hard on a lot of families. I know my own has been tough. You guys can probably relate in many different aspects with your kids, with yourselves, with mental health and different stuff of the effects of COVID. And so really the point of this is to give space, to use the church space for the community. So we've hosted other mental health seminars throughout the year. We've had counselors come in and give funding for free counseling for families and kids and throughout not just the church but in the community. We run a free after-school program for kids that's funded by the grant for tutoring. And so if you guys are interested in that, or if you know of any families that would like access to tutoring, we offer that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And again, it's all funded by the government, which is pretty cool. Just want to give a couple thanks for tonight. So you guys see all the nice cards and flowers. This was all sponsored, well, through the grant, but it was put on by Bona Fide, I believe it is, or Fode Creative Company. So if you guys are interested, or if you use the Instagram, you can follow them at Bona Fide Creative, and they're on there as well. Yeah, so we're excited. I think, as you guys know, the restriction exemption program is now over. There's mixed feelings about that, obviously, with what's happening tonight and different things, but I think the main thing is it's just nice that people can come out and have a fun night. And so that's kind of the point of tonight is, there's really no agenda. We're here to serve you guys and really just have a fun. I don't know when the last time you guys had a date night out with your spouse or maybe your girlfriend, boyfriend tonight, but tonight's about you guys and just serving you and letting you guys have a fun night. And so there's going to be prizes, there's going to be games happening. We have 2 speakers, which I'll introduce in a couple minutes here. And yeah, so just a couple things for tonight. If you guys need washrooms, they're just straight out the back door. We ask that if you guys are leaving your seats, if you can please put on your masks. I know we have to keep that rule for another 2 or 3 weeks for the province's restrictions, but that should be stopping soon. If you guys so you guys will have cups on your table. If you would like a drink, we do have some sparkling juices and stuff at the back. We ask that if you guys want to fill it up or want to refill, just that you would sanitize your hands, and you guys are welcome to have as many drinks as you want. We also have some charcuterie boards, some cupcakes, desserts. For those guys, I'll be bringing those around later in the night, and then you guys can pick which one you want, and I'll bring it to your table. So I'm your captain, your stewardess. If you need anything, my name's Josh. I'll call out, okay? But there's only one of me, so just please be gracious, because I'm doing check-in, I'm doing food, I'm doing everything, so just a little grace for that. So I want to introduce our speakers. So we have Kelvin Block, he's in the front row here, and his wife, Lorinda. Kelvin has been a pastor for over 25 years. 45. I'm Asian. 25 years, 14 of which he was head of the pastoral care and counseling departments in different churches. He's been married for over 27 years to his wife, and they're just super passionate about counseling and helping couples thrive, especially during COVID. So why don't we give a warm welcome to them? And
thanks, Ryan. Ryan. Thanks, Josh. Hey, we're glad to be here. And today we're going to talk about emotions, and we want to help you and your significant other, your partner. We're going to throw a couple tools in your relationship toolbox to help you use emotions to be beneficial in really good, helpful ways in your life and in your relationship. So we're glad you're here. My wife just wants to give a little more kind of who we are and kind of who's in our little family group. She's going to highlight a few more things and then we'll jump in.
So we've actually been married 36 years. That website was made a number of years ago, and Calvin just needs to change it. But yeah, we've been married 36 years this last December. We have 4 kids. One is married, and Jacia is 31. She just turned 31. Jacia has Down syndrome. And so she is just a light in our family. She has just really become the just funniest young woman, and she has a caregiver that takes her out 5 days a week, and she's just blossomed into just a really neat gal. Kayla is 29. She is in RN, registered nurse, and she's been at the Peter Lougheed for quite a while in the Emerge there, but she's now taking a break. This COVID just kind of got a bit much. And so she went casual, and now she's travel nursing. So she's currently in Cranbrook at their Emerge for 2 months because she wanted to learn how to ski. So why not? Dalen is 25. He is married to Crystal, and they've been married for 5 years already. And Dalen works for Authorized Security, selling security stuff. And Crystal is JCL's caregiver. She started doing that before they were even dating, and thankfully we've been able to hang on to her so far. I don't know how long PDD will let us do that, but she's absolutely amazing with JCL, and just such a neat part of our family. Brayson is 20, almost 22. Dalen's almost 26. Brayson's almost 22. And he just finished his second year. He did it 2 years in his schooling for his heavy equipment diesel technician. And now he's just started an apprenticeship. So he's got to get hours, and then he'll finish his last 2 years. He's been dating a young gal named Cassie for 5 years. And so she's become quite a part of our family too. Our family does like to have fun together, and they're not afraid to try anything crazy. So this was our Christmas picture this year. I don't know if you can see it well, but I said to them, let's do a crazy Christmas picture. And that's all I had to say. So I think Walmart definitely had an experience on their hands, but our kids just love to have fun, and we just enjoy having fun with them. I work in an elementary school in New Brighton. I'm a receptionist there, and I've been at New Brighton School for 6 years. I've been with the CBE for about 8. When Kelvin was getting his master's in seminary, he minored in counseling, and then we actually stayed on an extra year so that he could intern in the counseling department at Providence in Manitoba. So I learned all about the Mennonite culture there, and all about snow, because I grew up in BC, where it didn't snow much. When we were at seminary, when Kelvin was taking these courses, and I did audit some courses as well, this is kind of where we learned some of the stuff that we're going to share with you tonight. Totally life-changing for us. I am so thankful that we learned so much of this. It taught us how to better understand ourselves and the value of emotions in ourselves and for our relationship, the importance of them. And so we're going to share some of that with you tonight, and just the impact that it had on our marriage, and not just our marriage, but actually with raising our children as well.
Emotions. Emotions are really an important part of what it means. I would suggest to be a human being. What it means to be alive. What it means to be filled with life. What it means to experience a wide range of things that happen in our life, from sadness to joy, right? Laughter to grief. Emotions are a really big part of what it means to be human. When you think about your partner, we could ask the question, do you handle emotions differently than they do? Do you express them differently? Many of us will perhaps experience similar emotions, but there'll be different reasons as to why we experience those emotions. We think about COVID. In the pandemic we've been living in, it has, for many of us, obviously had all kinds of pieces by way of what we've lost. There's elements of grief, there's been disruptions, and each of us have handled that differently, and they've different parts along the way have affected us differently, but to be able to walk with each other through that can be very helpful, or it can be very divisive. We'd like to help you tonight to be able to be an asset and a help to each other rather than somebody who is unable to understand the other, to kind of move towards that. We're pretty different. Different things affect us, and it can be simple things. Like, for example, we talked about driving, I think, or if we were to describe your driving ability. So for me, having grown up in Saskatchewan, when you drive in wintertime and you go around the corner and the car begins to slide a little bit, right? That's very exciting. You just accelerate a little bit more, right? Okay, but not so much for my wife, right? She'll use words of expression and grab the dashboard, right? And it has a different effect on her than it does for me, right? So even though we have similar emotions that we'll experience, there will be different things that will cause us to experience those emotions, right? That driving a car like that doesn't make me afraid. When we first got married, I thought that my job as a husband was to do what I could to make sure my sweetheart was okay and kind of protect her and provide. So when she would cry, I would do my job, which is to make her tears go away. And how do you do that? Well, you logically help her to think through what's happened so that she can turn the tap off. Right? That's kind of my job, right? Or if she was upset, angry, mad, then I would sit down and I would help her talk to and think through and analyze as to why you're angry, and that's a good reason and that's not a good reason, and so you probably need to just be quiet and stop being angry. Didn't work really well. Because she's actually looking for something different than that. But I didn't have a whole bag of tricks to understand a bunch of those things. So we had to learn them. We had to enter kind of into this journey along the way so we could figure out how to do that better, so that I could be more of what she needed me to be in the moment of her emotions. Add to that, the dynamic that I get some stuff that happens inside of me that actually there's some emotions I don't like. There's some things, my emotional kind of range at that time was kind of like in compartments. Like there was this part about fun and joy, and then kind of like sadness, and then there was other things in between, and maybe in a broader scale that actually I didn't understand and actually was kind of afraid of. Like, I really didn't like it when people were angry. And so when my wife was upset, not only did I want to help her, I really needed her to stop being angry so I'd be okay. Well, we didn't learn that, so we kind of walked along this for a while. There was lots we had to learn. One of the places where we saw differences in how we understood, one of the places that helped us to try to figure out the differences that we understood was when we looked at each other's families. Now, do you remember that? You remember when you went to visit the in-laws, kind of, and, you watch there, you go, oh, that's really cool, I really like that. And then you saw some things, and then you'd get in the car, and after you were at their house and with your honey, you'd say, that's a bit peculiar. Like, why does your family do that thing? Right? And so we could talk back and forth on that. That was helpful. But we also had to kind of sit in this place of being able to be open about that and do it in a way that was kind and gentle, right? It wasn't throwing anybody under the bus. It was to explore, to understand. That was a bit of a journey for us. We had to kind of figure that out. Another part of when we looked at how each of our families, as we kind of analyzed, we saw how they dealt with challenges, emotional varieties, conflict in different ways. My wife is more expressive. I'm the introvert. I'm less expressive. My family dynamic is, if I say passive aggressive, do you know what that means? Like we knew you were mad, because we could feel it, but you just didn't say nothing. Whereas her house, they said something. And you knew when people were mad, because they would express it. And that's not wrong. I actually am quite drawn to my wife because actually she's different than me. But sometimes when we looked at some of those things, we then were able to take a step back. Not because we don't love and value our families, but actually because we could see that something was different and we wanted to try to figure out ourselves. And one of the ways that you and I can learn about your own understanding of emotions is to look where you came from. And if you and your significant other, your spouse, your partner, if you have the freedom to be able to kindly talk about each other's family upbringing, family of origin, it gives you a greater ability to look at, this was really healthy, this was a real strength in my family, and this over here was a little peculiar, odd, maybe a little less healthy. And that gives you the ability as a couple then to be able to step back and say, you know, in our life, in our home, in our relationship, actually we'd like to keep these strengths and begin to move past some of the things that were less healthy and less a reflection of strength. So early on in our relationship, we were able to do that. It was quite a journey. It was pretty tough because, you know, I know the rules of my house. You know, when I brought my honey home there, you know, I'm living out on the west coast there in Flyer, Saskatchewan, and like I know the rules. You know, we're sitting around the table. I'm the youngest of 8, and all my older brothers and sisters there, and there's other kids running around, and I know the rules. I know we don't debate with my dad. He gives his statement, and we all are quiet and listen. Everybody knows that. She doesn't know that. So I have to encourage her. You know, a little tap on the shoulder, a little kick under the table. That it didn't really help though, because that only made her feel a little less calm and relaxed, a little more nervous, and so then she did what she normally does when she gets nervous, which she then is more expressive. Ooh, it didn't work really good. We had to learn a whole bunch of those things together and team up, and we had to take some time to look at where we came from. Being able then to do that in an open and honest way, lovingly being able to own what belongs to us and not own what belongs to others, but still love others, that was some very helpful kind of foundational realities for us in our relationship, but also in raising our kids. You know, our kids understood that we could talk about emotions. Our kids understood that actually mom and dad don't always do everything well, and we could admit that. And we had, because of our understanding of emotions, we had the ability then to be able to work things through with their kids. Like, for example, we dirt bike a bit when my kids are small. We would head out to McLean Creek, and you know, sometimes it's like you're aware as a dad, we want to be at that gas station to meet our buddies at 10:30, and the kids, they kind of don't know that, right? And you're working really hard and trying to get going, and you're kind of feeling like we got to get going. So you encourage the children, and then they're kind of picking up the speed, maybe a little bit the pace. And then when they're supposed to help maybe tie down the bikes and they're not doing it, you might even get more frustrated, and I did, and I ended up yelling at my kids. And then you have to be careful because that can kind of wreck the day. And we're going to have a fun day, and Dad's kind of angry now, and he's yelling at everybody. That's not a good place. All right, so understanding emotions and be able to take inventory and take accountability and ownership for what belongs to me, because of what we understood regarding emotions. Then when we get in the truck and we close the doors before we leave the driveway, I say, I just need to apologize, because actually yelling at you is actually my stuff. You know, we want to try to meet our buddies over there at 10:30. And you guys helped, and when I told you to, you jumped in. But that you didn't quickly get those things tied down is actually my stuff. Because actually, I've never taught you how to do that. One. So now I'm angry at you and you don't know how to do it. And two, I'm frustrated because I'm trying to be in a hurry to get there, and that's actually not the end of the world if we get there late. I own my stuff, process it because I understand emotions, I have an ability to carry some of those things, and I own belongs to me, I apologize, and you know what, we can forgive each other, we can go have a great time, rather than carry that around the whole day. Okay, another part to that I would say is, obviously, if I just do a little more kid stuff, is being able to give them language, being able to catch them when they're sad, when they're hurt, when they're disappointed, when they're angry, right? Just to kind of walk alongside them. And obviously, that's always a difficult line because some days you're really frustrated and you just need them to get out of your hair, kind of idea. But for us, kind of the main point before we move on to some other stuff is just to be able to understand that emotions are true, and because they're true, they tell us things about what's real for us, what we would like, and what we believe to be true. So when a little person is upset about something, you can walk alongside them and help them to understand what's going on. Why are you acting this way? Why are you fussing this way? What's true? Okay, what do you need? Helping them to settle, to use their emotions because it's telling you something about what's true for them. Those are very helpful things for us as we were doing we could to raise our kids, and obviously we can talk more about that at another time. I think lastly, it's the self-awareness. Sometimes when I came home and come home from the office, things haven't always gone all the way that I would have liked, and I'm carrying something. It's heavy for me. Maybe there's other things that have happened in the day or the week, and I'm not my bubbly, introverted self. Not my fun, quiet self. Right? Yeah, do they go together? They do at our house. Right? But by way of that, I'm the introvert, so I come home and I'm a little reserved because I'm carrying something. But because we have understanding in language, I'm able to say to Lorinda, man, it's a tough day, man. Yeah, today I'm carrying something. And then she can come back and say, well, hey, are you okay? I'm okay. Do you need anything? You know what, I think I'm just going to take a few minutes in the room and kind of get my head together. Right? Sometimes we'll tell the kids around the table, right? Right, but so that they don't need to walk on eggshells because Dad isn't being his open, fun self. Because he's named it. I've named it. Now we can talk about it. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't need anything. Maybe I need something. But they don't need to try to guess as to why is Dad kind of being so sad and maybe grumpy. He's named it because I'm carrying something. All right, so we're going to blow this open a little bit, and we're just going to, as we step towards a little bit about our backgrounds, just give you a bit of a window of the homes we grew up in, and to help you to understand what we learned about emotions.
So as I said, I grew up in BC, and I grew up on a chicken farm, and we also had raspberries, and so that was often our summer job. And helping in the barns was not my favorite. As you could tell, I don't look like a farm girl. But we did it, and we enjoyed growing up on that farm. And as Kelvin said before, our home was a home where we expressed our emotions. We weren't afraid to emote if we were upset, if we were angry, if we were disappointed in something. We would openly express them. My dad was a quiet man, but yet when he got angry, we all knew it. He was really okay about expressing that anger. My mom was a verbal processor, and sometimes she would process more than most of us needed to know about different things that were going on, or things that she was feeling, and if somebody insulted her, then there were tears, and kind of knew what was going on. There was also a fair bit of criticism of people, which I really found hard. I've since realized I have a high need for justice, and when people are being criticized for things that they've done or whatever it might be, that's hard for me because I want to see the positive in them. And so that often I got defensive for them and would cause some, words to fly and some heated discussions and arguments. My mom grew up in a critical home, and very, very European home. And sadly, I think my mom, she said they were told they were dumb, stupid, and ugly. Just great things for your kids here, right? But that was the European way. That's how you motivated your children, was through criticism. And I think my mom certainly came a long way. She was pretty good at pointing out some of our strengths and encouraging us in that way. When we got angry with someone, he who yells loudest wins. You just yelled, and then you walked away, and then you just stewed about it, and it was never talked about. But once you kind of felt like, not being silent towards them anymore, maybe opening your heart a bit more, then you'd start talking again. And nothing was ever talked about. And apologizing seemed to be a really difficult thing in my home. I seldom remember it happening. And so even for us, when we got married, it was really hard for me to apologize. Thankfully, it was him that often had to apologize. But he taught me so much about just accepting my responsibility for my part of whatever, and being okay with myself enough to apologize.
Thanks, Ed. In my family, I said a couple things already. 8 kids. By the time I came along, I already had a nephew and a niece that were born, so they're older than me. And then there was 3 other nephews that were born just a few months after me. So I'm the youngest. We kind of had 4 kids, a 7-year break and a boy, a 7-year break, and then my 2 sisters and me. Right, so kind of like, really I grew up in a home with 2 older sisters and myself. And my dad, he immigrated when he was 18 from Russia, so again, also a bit of that European style. Is kind of the message was children were to be seen and not heard. And I didn't experience that as much, but my older siblings, when they talked about grandma and grandma, that would be how they would express it. Because grandma would eat first, I think probably with the other adults, and then leave the table, and then the kids were allowed to come in the house, kind of a deal, right? So again, wasn't part of my experience, but that kind of filtered down a bit, even to my experience. I would say here's another example that I thought was quite revealing. My grandpa, because of his religious points of view, was a conscientious objector when they were living in Russia. And when my dad was a little boy, my grandfather had to go and cut wood for the army through the wintertime for a few months. And in the village they lived in, there was kind of like one main road to come through town, and so you could always kind of see what was going on. My dad said to me one day, one day I was standing on the doorstep of our house, and I could see a man coming. So, it's not lots of action in this town, so you always watch who's coming. And this man came, and he came right to our door, and he came through the gate, and he came past me and went right in the house. And my older brother, my dad's older brother, came and said, "Who was that?" And my dad said, "That was our dad." And they turned around and they snuck in the house, and they went and looked, and Mom and Dad were in the bedroom, and Mom was sitting in a chair, and Dad was sitting on the bed. Now just imagine, you haven't seen your wife and your kids for 3 months. You didn't even stop and say hi to your little boy. And now you're having a discussion with your mom. With your wife, their mom, right? Like, I'd probably be hugging, kissing, and touching, and grabbing, and expressing to my kids and my wife. Right? Okay, so we can hear that, right? You hear a bit of that, and a bit of the culture. There's some other dynamics. I was in a class once when I was doing a training, and they talked about rules and roles, and some, at that point it was called alcoholics, ACOAs, adult children of alcoholics. They've changed the name on that. And as this guy was teaching about the rules and roles, I thought, that's never been in my house. No alcohol in my house. But how come he's talking about the rules in my house? Which were things like, don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. You better take care of yourself, right? So you can hear that kind of happen, right? So even though obviously there was just happiness and things like that, this wide range of emotions that was less so. So growing up in this little German town with a bunch of Mennonites, we as little boys and girls and adults, we loved hockey. Because when you play hockey, they do a couple things. They give you this thing in your hand, which is to move the puck, and you can use it for other things as well. And if you do things you're not supposed to do according to the rules, all they do is this guy with his stripes on, he blows a whistle, and he sends you to that little bench over there, and you go over there and you take a rest for a few minutes. But you can be very alive on the ice. Can you hear that? Whereas other parts, maybe, you know, in family, in church and stuff, you have to be more reserved. All right, so if we think about that, kind of that dynamic, and again, I think everyone would have a different story. This is kind of my story. There's this kind of, this reservedness and this belief that if you can keep your stuff together, you obviously are more together. So, you know, who did I kind of gravitate towards, you know? Like if you remember John Wayne, way back then, you know, I mean, today might be Vin Diesel, right? So you kind of live in this, that you know how I know I'm cool is because I got my stuff together. Different than, I'm full of life, and I can be filled with joy and happy and sad and express that sad. No, I got it together here, over here. Okay, so even if you're going to live in your world, whatever it is, for me it was in pastoral ministry, I got to keep it together. Different than having the freedom and the ability to understand the wide range of emotions that are affecting me. All right, so it's easy to see that I would step towards my heroes would be people who were a little more emotively controlled than full of life and free. Right, so I would say today where we want to try to also encourage you is that actually part of what it means to be alive is to have the freedom and the understanding and the ability to feel a wide range of emotions, to have the strength to be weak, to be vulnerable, to understand the value of being vulnerable in your relationship with your kids and with other relationships, the strength of that, not the need to continue to put up a front of how tough you are, rather than I'm incredibly strong, but I also have the strength to be weak. Like, the human spirit's amazing. I'm not sure if you're watching the Olympics these days, right? But it's amazing. We had, my boys, you know, do this mechanic thing, and this week again, on Tuesday I think it was, we opened the garage door, what's going on in here? There's like 8 people in there, people we haven't seen before. He's had a bunch of his friends, and he's got the car jacked up, and he's stripping the brakes off this guy's car and stuff, and kind of meet all these young guys and bring them a bit of food and their girlfriends and all that stuff. And then, they leave, and then all of a sudden it's a little quiet. Oh, and then there's laughter again. We come back, there's no car in there. No, they're all sitting in our lawn chairs in there. They got the fire pit going, and he's brought the TV out, and they're watching the half pipe because Liam Gill from Calgary here, one of them boards with them, and we're watching that sport. Again, whatever sport you're watching. But, for example, I'm watching this and I'm thinking all kinds of stuff. What I'm thinking like today is, holy cow, what the spirit can do and what the body can do is amazing. When you watch some of those guys wipe out and still stand up, right, and keep going, it's amazing, right? And all the flips, it's amazing. It is. Right? The ability to control and push yourself through, it's amazing. But that's not the greatest strength. That's part of the reality of the strength that we carry as human beings. But the strength also to be aware and full of life. And have the strength to admit and acknowledge, I don't have it together here. I need a little help. To be open and vulnerable, that's another type of strength. That's less about some of the stuff I learned about being tough. Can you hear the difference? I'm not suggesting that who we are by way of the strength of pushing through, this is amazing, but once we push through, we'd be able to sit down and say, that was pretty costly. We just went through COVID. Oh my goodness. And we're still on that road. It's been pretty costly. To have the freedom to be able to talk those things through, that's helpful and healthy and is a part of what it means to be emotionally aware. All right, so we're just going to step to a few questions. Laura's going to lead that, and then Josh's going to come up because you guys want to win some more things.
I was going to say too, when we got together, it's quite interesting because he seems really vivacious up here, and he really can be quite loud and noisy at home, and very, very fun. Our kids love his craziness, but when I met him, he had that craziness too, because he was a youth pastor, but there was also a reservedness in even his excitement. And, I'd say, like, aren't you excited about this? Yeah. Yeah. Really? Because you're not showing it. Right? And that was really hard for me. And so eventually he kind of learned that it was okay for him to express that, but that he was attracted to me doing the things that he couldn't let himself do. Right? Isn't that just
it kind of wasn't proper. Like, again, I'm the youngest and all that stuff. You didn't kind of show your emotions. Like, your birthday? Yeah, you celebrate your birthday whenever it worked for the rest of the family to come. Christmas? Well, whatever day the family came. Birthdays? It's a week. And absolutely on the day that it's your birthday. We're doing something. Right? That's part of what she brought. But I go, that's a little boring, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely it's not. Why wouldn't you want to celebrate? Any excuse to get together, any excuse to bless somebody? Absolutely. Like, that would seem not right. That didn't seem, that actually seems arrogant. But back there, that's what I carried.
Wow.
Rather than be full of life. Go ahead.
And on that note too, and even Valentine's Day, if there's a reason to celebrate, let me tell you, I'm going to make it happen because I love to celebrate. I even decorate my house 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. I know it's just not a big deal, but it is. It's kind of fun. And my kids, I think sometimes they're just kind of used to it, but yet now my kids that are not at home are starting to come in and go, oh, let's decorate it, kind of thing. And we've always celebrated Valentine's Day with our children. Until they had significant others, it was usually on the 14th, because if we went up the 13th or the 15th, we could use coupons. So we didn't need to go out the 14th. But I've always said to my kids, Valentine's Day just isn't about romantic love. It's about love in general. Because I had some deep wounding with Valentine's Day when I was a teenager, and I didn't get the carnations like the popular girls did, where the boys would send them carnations, or somehow I was never dating anybody at Valentine's Day. It was just sucky, because Valentine's was so all about romantic relationship. Anyway, so with our children, we've made it about our family too, and we had our family dinner last Saturday because it just worked out better and just celebrated the love that we have for each other. All right, so emotions in your home growing up. So intriguing to think about it. You've probably noticed some things in your spouse's family that are very different than your home. So we're going to take a couple minutes to talk about that. On your second page of the little handout that you got, there's a couple questions there that we want to just encourage you just to talk about for a couple minutes. Number one, how were emotions viewed in your home growing up? And number two, how do you currently handle emotions in your relationship? Or maybe in your case, how would you like to see emotions handled in your relationship, right?
Okay. Okay, we'll give you a couple minutes. Go for it.
How were emotions viewed in your home growing up? How do you currently handle emotions in your relationship?
Okay, can I bring you back? Okay, got the ball rolling a little bit. How's emotions in your home? Kind of learn from that a little bit. How are we in our relationship? How are we handling emotions? Okay, so I'll give you a bit of that stuff. We'll do a little bit more. But here we want to kind of have you carry this out the door. We want to encourage you to be intrigued by your emotions. Not to stuff them and shut them down. Not to only have a few of them, a couple of them, that you kind of value. Happiness, fun, joy. No, we want to encourage you to be intrigued with your emotions. Because emotions are like A window to our soul. They tell us things like what is true. Oh, the boss is really angry. Oh, you can feel that. You walk in the room. You know, sometimes when you walk in the room at the office there in the staff room, and you can just, you feel something. Oh, that's pretty freaking angry. What's going on? Something was happening.
Yeah.
Okay, and your feelings aren't always completely accurate on that, but you can often feel things. It's okay. Right? They tell us what is true. Emotions tell us what we would like. Oh, what it is we desire. Oh, what it is we want. Oh, what it is we long for. Okay, I know I'm writing in calligraphy here, but you're with me. Okay? Desires are expressed in our emotions. I wish the boss wasn't angry like that. I wish the boss would handle his anger a little different. I wish the boss would settle down. I'm just using that as an illustration. Okay, they also tell us what? Emotions also tell us, what we believe to be true. Okay, those are things that are positive. But today we're going to focus mostly on the negative. Okay? They tell us what it is we believe to be true that are false beliefs that then are connected to fear buttons, which then when those fear buttons are pushed, we're triggered. Do you ever wonder why the boss who's so successful every now and then turns into a 12-year-old? Yeah, which is different than them being upset or frustrated about something, but they turn into a 12-year-old and you go, oh, this is a little tough. Oh my goodness, what's that about? Because somewhere there's a belief system that's connected to a fear button, and now they're going to defend themselves one way or another. And depending on who they are as a boss, right, they might get outgoing, they might get aggressive, or they might become introverted and hide and be quiet. Okay? Emotions tell us what is true, what we would like. The more we know what it is we want, the more we can move towards getting what it is we would like. And when we can't have it, we can do something about it. And when we still can't have it, we can grieve the reality and know that actually I'm more than any one given event or one person's opinion of me. Okay? And they tell us what it is we believe to be true. Okay? We're going to unpack that for you a little bit. Okay? So we're going to try to explore that. Alright, so for example, here's an illustration I made up, a silly one. Let's say you're in my office. There's two little chairs there. I'm sitting on one. And there's a door we come in. You have access to the door, I have access to the door. Then there's just windows and walls. And let's say, for example, there is a kitten outside the door, and the kitten is meowing. And your anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, that you can barely think and breathe. You're at an 8 or a 9 because the kitten is at the door and it's meowing. That'd be a little peculiar, wouldn't it? If it's a Doberman trying to tear the door down to get a bite out of here, your anxiety ought to be up around there too, and you're thinking, can you outrun me? Right? But if there's a kitten there, but it's your feeling, it's true for you. Right? I can tell you, you need to settle down, be quiet, take a chill pill, and have a cup of coffee. No, don't have coffee, have a glass of milk. Right? Or I can say, that's interesting, what's going on? Well, what's happening? What's true is there's a kitten outside the door. Not quite sure what the desires would be in that, but my goodness, there's something inside of you that's triggered you, that's connected to something that's happened in your life. What is it? Have you ever felt that way before? Oh. Yeah, I remember. I was about 4 years old and we were out on the farm with our cousins and we went to see the baby kittens in the barn. And when we were there looking at the baby kittens, one of them kind of ran away, scurried off to the side over there, and my older cousin took that little kitten and he gently just tossed it back towards where the mother was and all that, but he missed, and that cat landed on the back of my neck. And that little kitten hung on for dear life and made a loud kitten noise, and it sounds like that kitten. And I just remember when I was 4 years old that something wasn't right, and that scared the bejeebies out of me. Huh, well, that's quite a story. It's a true feeling that helped us to understand an event that happened, and we unpack it in such a way that we can see that's why I feel that way. I'm a grown adult. I can easily step outside and deal with that cat, but not until I have an understanding of actually I've been triggered and it's connected to that. All right? Okay, so now we'll bring it to our direction a little bit. We'll give you a couple personal things for us. So, early in our marriage, we're out in seminary there and learning, and we're living in this 2-bedroom place, which actually, one bedroom was my study because we're in seminary. It was the living room, and it was the guest bedroom, and then we had another bedroom, and then we had a little sitting area, and we had a kitchen. So it's really small, like, I don't know, 400, 500 square feet kind of. And we're watching TV one day, and I'm kind of leaning up against Lorinda, and the commercial comes on, and she takes her hand, and she messes up my hair, and something inside of me goes boom. I grab her hand, and I squeeze it, and I say, don't ever do that again. Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a good oh, wow. What's that about? And I stood up, and I walked away, went to the other side of the big room that we live in, and I walked around a little bit, and I thought, what was that about? Right? Came back and apologized, and we began to unpack it. What just happened there? Oh, that felt like you were saying to me, I'm a little boy, and you need to be a little boy, and you're my little boy, different than you're my man. That wasn't what you wanted to comment on. Okay, now remember, I got 2 sisters, they're a little older than me, and I'm the little brother. So even today, yeah, I'm pretty old. Retirement's looking pretty close. And my sisters some of them will still introduce me as this is my baby brother. Okay, they don't mean any ill will, and when they dressed me up in makeup when I was a kid, before I went to church, they, tap my head and say, oh, this is our baby brother. No ill will. Somewhere along the line, I felt like there's something about how they're treating me right now, and when my wife touched me that way, I felt like I'm not your little boy. Okay, so we unpacked. You hear that? It's quite a journey, right? But we had some of the tools because we were able to be intrigued with, man, why am I feeling that? Different than, I'm getting mad at her, now she's getting mad at me, and we're putting a dividing wall here, and we're going to have some new rules here. No, she can touch my hair. She can do that now, absolutely. Because we had some ability to unpack that early on in that particular event. Learned to have a little different point of view on that.
As you can imagine, I was a little shocked at what just happened. And I think I was really quite hurt that he would grab my hand like that and speak to me like that, because that's just not usually in his nature. And so I was very thankful when he came back and we started to explore kind of what had happened. And he kind of, as you said, we talked it through and started to realize what had happened. And that it wasn't me he was upset with, it was actually just some his own wounding that he hadn't realized was there. So I know, like I had to not take it personally, and I needed to forgive him for that. And I knew he didn't want to treat me unkindly. I knew that was not in his nature. Knowing why he did it and learning what the trigger was really, really helpful in our relationship. So being able to walk that through together among many other situations that came up between us was really, really helpful in our marriage, so that we weren't holding things against each other, holding those hurts, harboring unforgiveness towards each other.
Okay, so one was kind of like that trigger, right? When that trigger happened, it's boom, I'm there. I'm acting like a 12-year-old, right? Another one would be for you and I to sit in a place and ask, where do you walk confidently? Where do you walk in freedom? Not arrogantly, confidently. Not needing to prove, like, you're awake, right? But in freedom. And where do you sometimes walk, not cautiously, but actually carefully? You're afraid. Where does it happen in your life? And why is it, and what's that about as a grown, healthy adult? Good question. Right? We ought to be careful in some places because there might be danger. Yes. But another part to understand the way of emotions is, where do you walk in freedom, where don't you? So here's one for me. So, again, older brothers. One brother is quite a bit older than me, and very, very kind to me. My dad's busy doing life, and he's like a surrogate dad to me, right? Teaches me stuff, sports, hockey, ball, etc., etc. He's like another dad to me. I really admire him. He got married. I'm like 7 years old, 8 years old, and we're sitting around the table, and his little one is sitting in the high chair and struggling. And those of us that have been parents, or if you have siblings that you've cared for, sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. You check the filter, you give them this or that, and you just can't figure out why they're fussing. And so we're carrying a conversation. I'm like 7 or 8 years old, and his little one is fussing, and he turns and yells at him to shut up. Okay, that caught me off guard. I learned some things. I'm a little afraid of that. I'm afraid of anger. I process it as best I can, but I'm a child, so it's childish. Anger's hard. It's too much for me. I can't handle it, and then I live my life managing it. Can you hear that? And in all of my relationships, I'm always managing people's anger because I'm afraid of it. It looks like I'm a really nice guy and I got my stuff together. But part of it is I'm actually afraid of anger. And then I marry a sweetheart who's quite expressive and has a family of origin that's a little different than mine. And it expresses itself. So we get together. It's really nice. I like that bubbliness about her, but I don't really know what to do when she gets angry. Well, I know what to do when she gets angry. I manage her anger. So you need to settle down. And, because I have some spirituality and stuff like that, we better pray.
Imagine how that went over.
Okay, all right. So can you see that? Actually, I wasn't walking in freedom. I had an event that happened that I interpreted as a child and took on childish beliefs, and now as an adult, I continue to do what I can to manage that false belief. Because I'm afraid her anger needs to go away. I need her anger to go away. Different than, you're really angry, what's going on? What are you upset about? Yeah. Talk to me. I can handle your anger because actually I'm not afraid of your anger. Because I'm more than your anger. Well, the little boy back there didn't know that. He believed actually anger was too much for him. And so I need to manage your anger. Whereas actually a healthy adult knows actually I can't handle anger. If there's no danger and all that stuff, right? But the expression of your anger, actually I'm not afraid of it. Right, do you hear that? That had quite a dynamic. So if you hear the invitation, we want you to be intrigued with your emotions. Okay, Lorinda's got one that she's going to share with us a little bit as well.
So, probably one of the catchwords these days is anxiety. One of the mental health issues that's quite prominent. I sure see it in my school. In fact, my youngest son wrote and produced a song called Anxiety just about a year ago now. It came out on Spotify and all that stuff. Never sang before in his life anywhere. And he does this huge song. Yeah, in the shower. Does this song and puts it out, gets 5,000 views, which I don't know how many that was, and hasn't done another one since. But anyways, he wrote it because of all the anxiety that was going on around. And he wrote it as something for his age group and the genre of music that he did for people to relate to. So anxiety has been one of my enemies, and generally keep it pretty much at bay. I did get help and all that kind of stuff. But listening to some of the doom and gloom newscasts, that's not good for me. I've had to put the news away and just not be listening. It can cause me to become pretty anxious about what's going on. And then I get edgy and I get cranky and, with Kelvin, or maybe I snap at some of my kids, and then I know something's going on, right? Time to talk it through with somebody. When the kids were younger, I had a lot of anxiety about them walking home from school or being somewhere by themselves, especially our daughter Kayla. She's a cute little blonde, tiny as all get out, and her walking down Sun Valley Boulevard was not my idea of safety. And so I would be quite anxious about that, and it was, I don't want her walking alone. And sometimes he'd get a little uptight with me, like, what's the big deal? She's walking, there's people around, she's on a major road, like it's not a big deal. But to me it was. And so I had to kind of start to think about what that was. When I was 12, we were in our berry field. It was about 11, 12 kind of thing. And some older gentleman would come around that just lived right around there, and would come around, and they were often had been in the sauce for a bit, a little liquored up. And they talked to my dad, and then I think it happened a couple times. I for sure remember once, but I think it happened a couple times where I just kind of felt uncomfortable, and so I started to walk around the back of our truck, which was sort of up against some bushes, and I started walking around the side, and he followed me with this little grin on his face, and he kept following me, and I just remember being afraid and kind of running around the truck. And as I describe it, you can see I remember it quite well. So that's where I'm coming from, right? My experience, which projected the anxiety, right? So understanding that has been really, really helpful. And then also just understanding that there are things in place that, because of my faith, I needed to trust God with my children. And that was really hard sometimes, because I know bad things happen. I've heard of horrible stories of kids being snatched, things like that, right? Even my boys, there was a time where the high school kids were coming. We just walk across the street in between the two houses, and there's a green space, and high school kids were parking their hot little cars there, and nobody kind of knew why, but there was some drug stuff going on, and that's kind of what we were hearing. They had been in our back alley our first few years, but now they were parking there. Well, that made me a little anxious for my boys too. And my one son had a friend that just lived about two blocks away. He thought it was a great idea to walk there at night, or walking home at night. That just was really, really hard for me. So Calvin often had to talk me off the ledge, and we just had to talk about it together. And he had to remind me, you know what, they're boys, they're going to be okay. We live in a really good neighborhood. We don't need to be afraid. I know it's hard for you, but let's just trust God with this, and they're going to be okay. Anyway, needless to say, Kayla didn't walk home from school a lot. I was okay to make that sacrifice and go get her very, very often. And then, of course, when they got phones, that was much easier. But she was like 15 when she got a phone. So I had a legitimate concern for her safety, but sometimes what I had experienced in life caused my concern to be much louder, and it was a real trigger for me. And it was hard to see the other realities and possibilities. So yeah.
Thanks, Ed. All right, watching the clock here. Okay, so we'll try to land the plane here. We'll go try to sit in the place of allowing your partner to have their emotions. Try to sit in the place of being intrigued with their emotions and your emotions. Try to team up and help each other look at the emotions to figure out what's true, what's going on, what would you really like? And is there anything that you're believing to be true that's connected to an experience you've had that's touching a false belief that's connected to fear button, so that right now it's a little loud in here. Your emotion's a little loud, which is different than being upset about something sometimes. Yeah. We're alive. You ought to be upset about some things. You ought to be really happy. But if we're so afraid, perhaps, anxious, down, we can kind of look, is there something else going on here? Because it's a little loud. All right, so don't fight your partner's emotions. Come alongside and team up and help each other with your emotions. All right, pretty conscious of the time. We'll tag on a couple things. We got Josh coming up here for the last big hurrah, okay? But let's just go to COVID for a little bit. All right? We're coming up to 2 years. 2 years ago in February, we did our last retreat. This is the next gig we've had since then, 2020. Okay, so if we think about COVID, we think about what it's been like for us in so many different ways. We think about how it's some days been harder for me, and it's got kind of louder, and I struggled. Some days for Lorinda, louder, and it's struggled. There's this thing about the first 2 months we all thought the end of the world was coming, and we all went home and stayed home, and then we kind of figured out this thing called Zoom. Figured out Zoom. We're all experts now. No problem. Right? You remember all that? Okay, and then we kind of found out, well, actually, we kind of like each other. We kind of did okay, and kind of got along, and had to kind of give each other space. Right? We had some pretty good tools emotionally to be able to do that. We know in some homes, actually, there's dysfunction actually got louder. And actually, our dysfunction wasn't too bad, and the things that were dysfunctional, we actually were able to talk through, because we had a couple tools in our tool belt. Okay? Like COVID, all right. And as we've gone along, and as you've gone along, we've had to deal with the ups and downs and the changing and the mandates, etc. So all of us have. Yeah, in different ways, whatever your perspective is, it's okay. But it's been quite a tension. In fact, it's been a tension in families. It's a tension here because we handle them differently, and we're mostly in the same ballpark, even though we might disagree some. But then you have children, and when your children are adults, they actually don't think the same way you do all the time.
Totally.
Yeah, hey, and they might actually disagree.
Yeah.
And we know that in some of our lives, that actually some family members haven't been in a relationship because they've disagreed. And that's sad. I want to encourage you to continue to tune into your emotions and use them, but also I want to help you and encourage you to be clear on what's primary, which is your love for each other, even though I don't always understand you and I don't always agree. And we can push that out to your love for your kids, your love for your moms and dads who might disagree, and to be clear on accenting that and not allowing, if you can, even though we disagree, not allowing our disagreement to hijack the main thing, which is, I love you and I'm for you. I don't quite know how to navigate through that, and this one's really hard for me. I'm going to disagree with you on this one, honey, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. Similarly with other family members. So as we think about COVID, right, those have been huge challenges for all of us. We've grieved and lost so many things. Okay? But if we can continue to step in the place of being open about our emotions, so we can walk alongside and help each other and those in our extended kind of family as well, and keep the main thing the main thing. I think that's going to help us to be able to continue to grow past this, reunite, right, and continue to move forward in a healthy way. There's some heavy roads ahead, I know, but we're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And here's a little tool regarding emotions I think will also be helpful.
Thanks, Josh. So we have round 2 next week. Kelvin and Lorinda are going to be coming back to do another topic. It's called Keeping the Flame Burning in Your Relationship. I know I can take it many ways, but it's focused on healthy self-esteem, healthy self-awareness, understanding of triggers, which you touched on tonight, a little bit on sex and pornography, and seeking and granting forgiveness. So if you guys liked what you heard tonight, if you want to go a little bit deeper and bring your partner again, or even your family, you're welcome to come next week. We will have more gift cards if that's what you're into as well. And also tips. So that will be next week. We also, on the 24th, the Thursday after this, or the next week, we have a guy coming from Edmonton to speak on the effects and the truth about pornography. You guys probably have heard in many different circles in psychology, not just in the church, that I would argue that pornography, what's going on right now in the world is an epidemic within a pandemic. And we know that the effects are starting to come out now through studies of how it destroys relationships. And the effects of that, not just on, the stats are very on par now with men and women who are struggling with it. And so it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the world presents it as very fun and innocent, but it's harmful and destructive. And companies like MasterCard and Visa are recognizing that now. Even governments are starting to take action, but more needs to be done. So if you guys are interested in that one, we'll have a guy coming from Edmonton. His name is Klein. He's the founder of Restored Ministries, and he's helped hundreds of men and women around the world and spoken in dozens of countries. And he'll be coming on Thursday night on the 24th. All these seminars are recorded. They're usually live streamed. Tonight wasn't, unfortunately, just due to some stuff with our technology and some COVID stuff. But if you guys want to share this information, or anybody that in your family that you think would be helpful, online on community-hub.ca, which is the website for this program, you guys can find all the old past recordings and seminars that we've done since September. And there's stuff on youth mental health. There's stuff on financial literacy. There's tons of stuff with that. So I encourage you to check out that, and that's also where you'd register for the next seminars as well. With that, just one more thing. Just want to give a couple of shout outs and thank yous again to Top Dish, the ones who supply the gift cards. So we give thanks to them. You guys can follow them at Top Dish on Instagram. They're also on Facebook if you're into that. And for all the decorations and food, we just want to thank Bona, I'm going to mess up his name, Bona Fide Creative Company. And if you go on Instagram, it's at BONAFIDE Creative Company, Creative Co. So at Bonafide Creative Co. You can follow them if you want to connect with them. Yeah, so why don't we give a round of applause to those guys as well. And our sound guy. Yeah. So if you guys want to stick around after and chat a little bit, you guys be around a bit. If you want to chat with Kelvin and Lorinda. If not, have a great night. We thank you guys for coming and enjoying the night on us. And I hope you guys, this was a blessing in the midst of these 2 years that, you can look back and it's been a blessing for you and your partner today. Just ask one thing for the kitchen. If you guys don't mind, it would be super helpful if you could put your dishes, the cups go in the blue one at the back there, your cutlery in the gray one, and then on the floor there's for your plates. That would be super helpful. Last but not least, we also have a gift, as you guys saw on your table. You can take that home, and that's for you to enjoy. And yeah, once again, thank you for coming tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Josh.